God, oh God.
Boy.
I've been working all year. I just got my check. I'm about to spend it all on me. I'm worth it. Yeah. Hold up. Tell me what you say. Pull up.
Swerve.
Watch these freak. Watch them say what up, though, when you see me in the street. Good music in this.
Hello and welcome to Blake and Noah, episode 14. Yeah, 14 episodes. It's been a lot, time flies. And of course, that means we've covered a lot of sports. We started in August, and baseball, we had no idea what was going to happen. Now we know how the season ended, and we're well into a lot of the other seasons as well. I'm here with my co-host, Blake Devine. Blake, how you doing?
Pretty good. Excited to be here. Again, 14th episode. That's a great accomplishment. It's November 17th, so we're right in the thick of the college football season and getting into the stretch run also in the NFL. So lots of exciting sports. We have basketball, both collegiate and NBA. So there's a lot to talk about, and we're going to start with the NFL today just to get you guys all pumped up because we had quite the day. But before that, Noah, what are some interesting things you observed during the week of sports?
Well, it was a crazy week overall. I got to go to the Bears-Ravens game this weekend. There were some pretty exciting college basketball games here in Chicago. Unfortunately, I was unable to go to those, but you had Duke, Kentucky. It's just a terrific game all around. And, of course, just before we start, before we give you the phone numbers and everything, remember that our website is live now. You can find that at nationalsportsradio.com. We already have a couple of articles up there. One, of course, written by you, Blake. But we've got a couple of articles up there. It's a great website, and it'll be, we'll get more and more as time goes on.
Yeah, and then also, if you would like to call into our show today, our number to call it's a little different today. It's 773-988-9153. And I'm going to say that two more times. 773-988-9153. One more time for you guys all out there. 773-988-9153. So call in, please. We'd love to hear all of your comments and suggestions and maybe some questions as well. Because last week we had 3 people calling, and that was a new record for us, and we enjoyed that, although it did take up a lot of time. But thank you guys all for calling in. And also, if you'd like to follow us or like our page on Facebook, we're the Blake and Noah Show, live from LA to Chicago. So you can find us on Facebook. We're really close to 100 likes, so if you'd like our page, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and so without further ado, let's get into the NFL. Everybody excited about the NFL. It's a great season. So Blake, let's have you get started. Give us our scores for the day.
Yeah, we're going to start with the NFL scoreboard, and just pulling it up right now. We've had a lot of exciting games today. And the biggest story of the day was probably, it's probably going to be tonight. We have our Sunday night football game between the Denver Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a game in which these two teams are combined, I believe, to be 16-1. It's the first time that this has happened with two teams combined to have such an outstanding record so late in the season. So I cannot wait for this game. I have it recorded right now as we're doing our show right now, but we'll be giving you updates on that game as well. But now, to start with the scoreboard today. Our first game to talk about was the Eagles. My Philadelphia Eagles defeating the Washington Redskins 24-16. Eagles improved to 6-5 and 1-4 at home. They got the first home victory of the season. Now they're over 500, while the Redskins fell to 3-7 on the season. And they barely held off those Redskins, but got a very good victory at home. Another notable game was the Bills defeating the Jets 37-14. Bills improved to 4-7, while the Jets fall to 5-5 in Buffalo today. Bears, the game that Noah was at, defeated the Ravens 23-20 in overtime. They weathered the storm for an overtime victory. The Bears improved to 6-4 at home, while the Ravens fall to 4-6. And then another game to talk about was the Bengals defeating the Browns. A great defensive performance for the Bengals. They won 41-20 and improved to 7-4 on the season, while the Browns fall to 4-6. Steelers defeated the Lions 37-27. Steelers improved to 4-6 on the season, and the Lions fall to 6-4 on the year. Another game to talk about today was the Buccaneers absolutely destroying the Falcons 41-28. This was a game played in Tampa Bay. The Bucs improved to 2-8 on the season. They get their second straight victory at home, and the Falcons fall to 2-8 on the season. Yikes! Jaguars fell to the Cardinals. Cardinals took that game 27-14. Cardinals improved to 6-4 on the season, while the Jags fall to 1-9. Just another loss for those Jaguars at home, as Palmer was great for the Cardinals. Raiders were able to get a road victory in Houston, defeating the Texans 28-23. Raiders improved to 4-6 on the season, while the Texans fell to 2-8. And then the Chargers were upset by the Dolphins today in Miami, 20-16. Dolphins improved to 5-5 on the season, while the Chargers fall to 4-6 today. Saints won a game versus the 49ers in a very good NFC battle, a clash between two of the premier teams in that league. And we had the Saints coming out with a victory 23-20 at home. They are now 8-2 on the season, while the Niners lose for consecutive weeks. They're now 6-4 on the season. I know your Packers lost today. I'm sorry about that, Noah. Giants won that one 27-13 in the New Meadowlands Stadium. They're now 4-6 on the season, while the Packers fall to 5-5. Just a really horrendous season for them with all their injury problems. Another game was played, and that was the Seahawks just destroying the Vikings 41-20. Vikings fall to 2-8 on the year, while the Seahawks improved to 10-1 on the season for them. Great record so far for the Seahawks and Pete Carroll. And then our Thursday night game was very exciting. This was the Colts pulling out a victory in Tennessee versus the Titans. They raced an early 14-point lead to come away with the victory 30-27. They improved to 7-3 on the season, bounced back from their ugly loss to the Rams, and the Titans fall to 4-6 on the season. And then the Monday night game that everyone's talking about, that is the Patriots versus the Panthers. You have two great quarterbacks, Tom Brady versus Cam Newton, and that's going to be a very high-scoring game in my opinion. You have the 6-3 Panthers playing the 7-2 Patriots in Carolina. So two very good games going on still, and that'll be the Chiefs and Denver, Patriots and Panthers. So a lot of great games still to be played tonight and tomorrow. And Noah, now I'm going to give it up to you and tell me what you thought of this great week of football we had.
Well, it was very exciting, and the rain delay. I was at that game. Not fun to sit under the stadium basically for an hour and a half while it's raining. It was a long game, It started at 12, ended at 5:30, something like that. Pretty long game, and it was exciting. It was worth it for the people who stayed. A lot of people left, like half the stadium was empty by then, but for the people who stayed, you got an overtime game. Justin Tucker sent it to overtime, but in overtime, Baltimore could not get it done on their drive. The Bears drive down in a miraculous catch from Martellus Bennett. He went over the guy, reached over the guy's head, caught the ball, and Robbie Gould would end up tacking on the field goal to win the game. And the Ravens, who finally found themselves back in the race in the AFC North after they defeated the Bengals, have just possibly dropped their shot. They are now 4-6 on the year, tied with the Browns for the worst team and Pittsburgh. Cincinnati looks like they have this division in hand. And for Chicago, it's a big win, especially after Detroit lost. Now they're stuck up there at 6-4. But at the same time, somehow Green Bay, despite all of these losses to the Giants, are still only one game back, which is pretty surprising. It's been basically because of how fluctuating these teams have been. And it just was a very exciting week. But I think out of all the games, the Saints and the 49ers was the most exciting. Went down to the final second, and the Saints end up winning 23-20, and they're 8-2, and the 49ers 6-4. The big thing about that, though, is Jimmy Graham unable to do anything, which is kind of surprising considering what a dominant tight end Graham is.
Yeah, I thought this whole Week 11, it had some really premier matchups. Also, a notable thing to mention is Philadelphia. They're now 6-5 on the year, and they're looking really good in that NFC East, possibly to compete for that division along with the Cowboys. They got their first home victory of the season. Kind of hard to believe considering they're 6-5, but their only home victory was today versus the Redskins. We're pretty dreadful at 3-7 right now, but I thought that was a very notable fact to make, along with another interesting game that I thought, along with your or not with your Bears. They're the home team Bears. You cheer for the Packers, obviously. I thought another game to make notice of was the Steelers defeating the Lions. Lions are just kind of one of those really weird teams where one week they can look really great, and then other weeks they can look very weak. And this was on the road in Pittsburgh, but the Steelers aren't what they used to be, obviously. And they lose by 10 points in Pittsburgh and get their 4th loss of the year. So I don't really know what to think of this Lions team. I don't think they're really a playoff contender. They're more of a pretender, I think.
Well, Blake, we have a caller in here. What's your name?
Gustavo.
It's Gustavo. He's on basically every week. How you doing, Gustavo?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, Noah?
I'm doing pretty good. What do you want to talk about, Gustavo?
Oh, this time, well, I know Blake's a pretty big USC fan as well, and I just wanted to know your guys' opinion on the Stanford USC game yesterday.
Blake, I'll let you start because you are the USC fan.
Yeah, it was quite a victory. Some think that it's a sign of a turnaround for this program at USC. Obviously, Coach O is now the head coach at USC, the interim head coach, but this is going to be a really tough decision at the end of the year to decide if he's going to be the full-time coach from now on. But just for the team perspective, I thought it was a great game for USC to pull off the upset at the Coliseum. You saw afterwards all the fans swarming around the Coliseum. I haven't seen that in so many years, just because in the Pete Carroll days they were always favored, and now they were the underdog. And I thought this was just a program-reviving victory for this Trojans team. Great field goal winner by Andre Hidari, who's been a struggling kicker for the Trojans. And now it gets Oregon right back in the hunt for the Pac-12 title and a possible Rose Bowl berth, and maybe even a BCS title chance. But with this loss, Stanford, I think, in my opinion, I think they're out of the Pac-12 race because they're sustaining their 2nd loss of the year. But a huge victory for the Trojans, and maybe an even bigger victory for Oregon.
Yeah, I agree with you, Blake. And, USC also got themselves back in the hunt as well. You look at the top, if they can beat UCLA and they can beat Colorado, then all they would need is an Arizona State loss. And though Arizona State has played well, they have also lost some bad games. And you look at them, they get UCLA. So USC, they could find themselves back in the Pac-12 championship because of this game. Anything else, Gustavo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's a little off topic, but who do you think would win a fight? A grilled cheese sandwich or a taco?
I don't know. I guess I'd go with the taco. I just like tacos more.
Interesting question,
Yeah,
but
I think
taco
so, too.
definitely.
Taco? We're in agreement. It's taco.
All right, sweet. I'll put my money on that. All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Gustavo. I think that's the best question. Can we all agree that's the best question we've gotten so far? And the taco wins by default, by decision, by knockout. Yeah. Where were we before the taco question?
We were talking about the NFL, but we got to thank our guy Gustavo coming on, just a very avid follower of the Blake and Noah show, along with always calling in. We love his sports analogies along with his questions. And thank you, Gustavo. A salute to you for your interesting questions. But on that note, let's get back to the NFL here. We were talking about notable performances, but I think I've kind of spoken my word about this whole week today. Noah, any other last opinions before we look at the standings?
Before we do that, I'm really upset at Garrett Graham. And this is just personal because, Garrett Graham came in after Owen Daniels got injured and supposed to be really doing well. And so you pick him up. Every fantasy owner tries to pick him up. You know what he does? He does nothing. And then this week, he goes for 136 yards and 1 touchdown. It just doesn't make sense to me. And some crazy performances, though. Like, just, I'm going to say these names, and how many of them are actually, famous and great? You look at Bob Rainey. No, it doesn't ring a bell. 163 yards, 2 touchdowns running. I guess, what's his name? Not the other Floyd. Michael Floyd. There we go. He's not that famous. I mean, everybody knows who he is, but he's not that great. 193 yards and a touchdown. Rashad Jennings of the Raiders. 150 yards, 1 touchdown. These are players that you don't expect to do this stuff, but it seemed like the least well-known players really came up biggest this week.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting day in fantasy football, it always is. There's always some wild card player who you never really expect to play well, and they just play awesome, lights out. And then the next week you might pick them up and they'll get shut out or something weird like that. So fantasy football is so unpredictable, but you obviously got to go with the stars because they're going to be consistent. But there's always one or two or maybe even three random players who will just have a great week one week, and then the next week they'll just be back to normal. But that's fantasy football for you.
Yeah, and that's Bob Rainey. Who is Bob Rainey? I heard that on the announcements of the Bears game. It's like, who? I had no idea. I've heard of the other two, but Bob Rainey is just I don't think he's ever touched a football in a game before that.
Yeah, he is the Buccaneers running back. So third string running back, by the way. I mean, you had Doug Martin, and then you had, I believe his name was Mike Davis. Am I correct?
No, Mike James.
Mike James, sorry about that. But Bobby Rainey, if you look at his fantasy performances, he has very consecutive zeros. He has 1 and 2 in week 3 and 4, and then week 10 versus Miami last week he went for 11 points. So maybe that was a sign of something. But a very good person to possibly pick up. Noah, wink, wink, hint, hint.
Yeah, but talking about that game, the Falcons are terrible. The Falcons are awful. The Buccaneers are a bad team, but they destroyed the Falcons. It was kind of embarrassing for them to lose to a team led by Napoleon Dynamite, but it was bad. It's just Matt Ryan keeps throwing for interceptions. If I was a Falcons fan, I just start wishing for next year.
Well, also, you're going to lose your tight end, Tony Gonzalez.
That's very true.
I'm concerned for this team. I really thought that this was a year where they could contend for a Super Bowl. But maybe if they keep playing the way they're playing, maybe lose out, they could get a very high draft choice and maybe bolster their team to be even better than they were last year, which I know is kind of a weird scenario, but they kind of had a tank year this year and then come back next year and be even stronger than they were projected to be. Who knows? That's just my theory on them.
Yeah, really quickly, if they lost, who would they draft, though? The quarterback doesn't seem smart because Matt Ryan, he's played well most of his career, and he's been great at Atlanta except for this year. Their wide receiver core is good when healthy. They have, you lose a tight end, but there's not really a tight end that goes that high in the draft. It's just interesting. I would go with Jadeveon Clowney to boost that D, but in their situation, it's not an easy pick for them because they already have to eliminate all of those talented players straight off the board.
Well, a lot of the talent this year in the draft, other than Jadeveon Clowney, is quarterbacks, and maybe not running backs. It's a pretty weak running back year in college football, but just so many quarterbacks, and maybe they could snag a very solid person in the second round to maybe back up Matt Ryan, give him a little pressure, possibly to perform better than he did this year. But yeah, you got to go with Jadeveon Clowney here, the Southern kind of thing. Yeah. He's from South Carolina, Atlanta. It's close by. That would be the smart pick for them.
If they stay right where they are right now, which would be 5th, you probably won't get Clowney. And then it comes down to 2 players. One of them, UCLA's Anthony Barr, the linebacker, or Lewis Nix, the massive defensive tackle for Notre Dame. And those are both quality players, but it's not often you get to say Atlanta picking 5th in the draft.
Yeah, but I think it could help them in the long run. Although pick up a tight end maybe. There's some good tight ends out there in college football.
It's just a little high, They do. I agree with you.
They'll have a good second-round pick.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you that there are some very talented tight ends out there. I just don't know if they're that high of picks. You have Austin Seferian-Jenkins. You have I can blank on his name, but UNC's tight end is very good. But there's a lot of talented players. And even for teams like Denver and KC that'll probably be picking later in the draft, they're still going to get really good players. It's just one of those years. Seems like the NFL and NBA drafts are going to culminate this year with some of the best drafts we've seen in a while.
Yeah, it's a good thing for both sports in a way to bring in the new young talent to kind of bolster the league in the future.
Yeah, I agree with you. Youth is very important as you try to, if you don't have youth in a league, then it just kind of gets old and slow and boring. But you always have to have star-studded drafts, and this is one of those that really just boosts interest in the league again. I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to make next year. We already look at this year in the NFL and we think, wow, this is a really great year. But next year could be even better. So, it's very exciting for all NFL fans out there.
Yeah, and now let's just go on the standings, Noah, just for time constraints here.
Yeah, no problem.
We're going to start with the NFC, as we always do, and we'll go with the NFC East right now. With the victory, Philadelphia now moves to first place in the NFC East. Who would have thought? I know I would not have thought after they lost in consecutive weeks to the Giants and the Dallas Cowboys, but a big showdown next Sunday. It's going to be Giants at home versus the Cowboys, which will be really important for this division as well. But Philadelphia, Nick Foles playing great football so far ever since he's come back from injury versus the Cowboys. And they're going to play next week at home versus Arizona, who's vastly improved. But I really think the Eagles have a good shot of winning this division, especially with their coach Kelly doing the strategy so well for Nick Foles, and I really think that this Eagles team is playing great so far. Noah, I'm going to just ask your opinion on the NFC North so far. Detroit and Chicago are tied for the lead. Green Bay is struggling with injuries, and then Minnesota is just way out of it. What do you think of this division?
Oh, just a crazy division. And, the teams necessarily aren't that great, but out of all the teams, I really like your Eagles, Blake. I like how they've been playing. And for all the crap I give Nick Foles about being the fake savior, he's kind of looking like the savior right now. Playing great. He's not throwing interceptions. And even though he didn't throw a touchdown today, they end up winning. Just phenomenal play by your Eagles. And I think that they are going to win this division. And, not winning away from home, it could end up playing into their favor if they have to play away from home in the playoffs. We'll see how that turns out. But I am impressed with the Eagles right now.
Yeah, I was going to make note of that 5-1 road record as well. Very notable for them. But on the NFC North, Noah, what do you think?
The NFC North. Well, Green Bay is still somehow in it, and I will maintain hope. But at this point, I still see Detroit as the favorite, but Chicago still could definitely make it. When you look at the schedules, Detroit, they lost to Pittsburgh, and that's not a good loss at all. But you look at the rest of the schedule, they get Tampa Bay, the hobbled Packers. This is an interesting game. This could decide their season against Philadelphia, in Philadelphia, Baltimore, New York, and Minnesota. So it's a pretty easy schedule for the Lions. You look at the Bears, obviously, coming off that crazy win today against the Ravens. But it's not going to get easier. You look at their schedule, Dallas is going to be tough. Minnesota, they're not a good team, but Adrian Peterson always has the ability. Once again, they play in Philadelphia and then Week 17 against Green Bay. At this point, I think the Lions have the upper hand, but the Bears have proven they can win. It'll be down to the wire, and it really will come down probably to those last 2 weeks. But I still think that the Lions are the favorite. Bears second, of course. I can't really put the Packers up there because of all of their injuries.
Ooh, Noah, just having to choose against your Packers, I'm sure that's painful for you. But yeah, I have to agree with you. Detroit's still the favorite, but very disappointing loss today. Chicago's schedule looks like it could possibly allow them to maybe gain some ground and possibly take this division over Detroit. And then Green Bay, I don't know what the deal is with this team right now. Noah, you guys just have to get healthy and then start winning some ball games, maybe possibly get a wild card spot. But I don't know about the division crown for this 2013 Green Bay Packers team. But now let's move on to the NFC South really quickly. New Orleans, with a win today over the 49ers, they're 8-2. They have the second best record in the whole NFC, just trailing Seattle right now. But this team looks really, really good, and they look kind of resemblant of that team with Drew Brees and Sean Payton as coach. They won the Super Bowl over the Colts a few years ago. So what do you think of this team? And then also Carolina's played great, and they're playing a very big showdown game versus the Patriots at home. We're going to see if this team is legit. We already saw last week versus the 49ers, a great victory on the road, but two really good teams at the top here and then two very mediocre teams at the bottom.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think that though the Saints will win, the Panthers are just as dangerous of a team as the Saints, and Carolina could make a deep run in the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints and the Panthers could end up meeting each other in the NFC Championship game, and I'm picking Carolina against New England. I think they play New Orleans twice, so they could end up winning the division. It's going to be hard, but this is wide open. You look at Carolina, they played one less game. If they can pick against the wins against New England, Miami, and Tampa Bay, going to New Orleans, if they can pick up that win, I think they are going to win the division. It's going to come down to the end. And when you look at the bottom, of course, you look at two terrible teams. Their seasons are over, and really for them, it's time to look ahead to next year and how they're going to fix these terrible seasons.
Yeah, good points there. I really do think Carolina has a shot to make a definite shot to make the playoffs, along with a shot to compete for the NFC South. But I don't know about New Orleans and Carolina as the NFC Championship game. I see San Francisco and Seattle have a very good argument to be those two teams right now. And with that, let's just go on to the NFC West really quickly. Seattle is 10-1. They look like they're definitely at least one of the top two teams in the NFL right now. You've got to argue for Denver, you got to argue for the Saints, and you also got to argue for those undefeated Chiefs. But they're unbelievable level so far. And with this, they're just pulling away from those San Francisco 49ers, who are now 6-4 on the season. 3 games in the loss column behind are those 49ers, and 4 games in the win column. So Seattle is slowly growing this lead in the NFC West, and I think they're definitely going to take this division, while San Fran is having some struggles right now, and they're tied with Arizona. Yeah, so very interesting. And then St. Louis, I have no idea what to think about this team. They're not a legit team at all, but they destroyed the Colts last week, and they're going to play next Sunday versus Chicago, which will make it interesting. They have a chance to kind of destroy other teams' playoff chances. Sorry about that, but I don't think they're a real team.
Yeah, they're a real team. They do exist, but they are not a real team. I want to touch on your. Yeah, no, I got what you're saying. Just talking about the NFC South, how you said San Francisco. I don't see San Francisco as a legit team. I think everybody's figured out Colin Kaepernick. I think every good team has stopped him. Panthers D is too good for them. New Orleans ended up winning the game. Seattle is significantly better. Seattle is by far the best team in the NFC. And it's going to be tough for San Francisco. They are facing an uphill battle. And if they can't start to string together some wins, they could find that their season could be over faster than they hoped. You looked at it, they lost to the Redskins. It won't be easy. I mean, they lost to the Saints. It won't be easy against the Redskins next week. They get Seattle again. So they could find themselves at 10-6. And in such a tight conference, they might not end up getting into the playoffs. And it's weird to think about that, but it is going to be very tight. And San Francisco has put themselves in a bad situation. You look at the teams they played, they have not beaten one good team. I guess, I'll give them Green Bay week 1 because Green Bay was healthy. But
because Green Bay is your favorite team.
Well, Green Bay was good when they had Rodgers. I mean, you realize they were a good team when they had Aaron Rodgers, when they were all healthy. And now we're into another subject, which is the Packers. They lost 34-28. They were up on them for most of the game. It was a very tight game. They lost to Cincinnati barely. It was a 34-30 game. They destroyed most of the other teams they played when they were healthy, since Rodgers got injured. But that's a good team they've beaten. But besides that, they lost to Seattle. They lost to Indy. They lost to Carolina and lost to New Orleans. Look at the other teams they've beaten. St. Louis, not good. Houston, not good. Arizona, Tennessee, Jacksonville, not good. So they can't beat good teams. I don't see how they are a playoff contender right now.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, all it's going to tell from the time that the regular season ends for this team. They do get to play Seattle at home on December 8th. That'll be a huge game for them, especially if they get these next 2 victories, which I think they will, at Washington and at home versus St. Louis. That'll set down kind of a showdown in that NFC West, despite them having 4 losses already. But this will be the game that proves if they are actually a real team. Why am I saying real team today? I mean, a real playoff contending team.
Yeah, a real team. No, Blake, they do not exist. They are not real teams.
Oh, man. Okay, let's go to the NFC. Oh, wait, we're already at the NFC. I'm just losing it today, Noah. You got to help me out. We're going to move on to the AFC right now, and we're going to go with the AFC East. New England just has this division in hand, no doubt about it, despite if they lose to the Panthers, which I don't know. We'll have to see how that Monday night game plays out, but they're 7-2. I do not think this team is a really good team. To be honest, they've had a lot of victories that really could have gone either way. They've lost to the Jets. The Jets are 5-5, but the Jets are terrible. They got destroyed by Buffalo this week. This whole division is very weak, in my opinion, other than New England, which is one of those teams that I expect to maybe get home field advantage in the playoffs, but possibly lose in that second round due to them just not being a very good team. Tom Brady has had a career low kind of a season for this year, and then they've just had a lot of players injured, kind of coming back. Obviously, their tight end Gronkowski is back, and he's healthy, but New England is not a real contending team, in my opinion. So this whole division is very weak. I want to hear your opinion on New England, Noah.
Well, I think New England is a good team, but they aren't that good. Honestly, since losing their offensive weapons, they haven't been good. Tom Brady hasn't been the quarterback that he's been for most of the time. I don't know what to think of this team, and I really don't see them as one of the best teams. And really, it's starting to clear its way for Kansas City and Denver to possibly end up playing each other in the AFC Championship game as it stands right now. But when it comes to the NFC or the AFC North, or not the AFC North, the AFC East, New England's going to win it, but they don't have much confidence right now. They're definitely going to have to figure out some of their issues before they get into the playoffs.
Yeah, and I'm looking at their schedule right now. After they play Carolina, which they're going to play on Monday night, they have a pretty tough game after that versus Denver. And those two games are really going to show if this team is actually legit and if their 7-2 mark is actually for real or if it's kind of a fluke with their kind of easy schedule this season. We're going to see on Monday at Carolina. That'll show how good Tom Brady really is this season. And then next Sunday night versus Denver, which is bound to be a great game.
Yeah, it'll be very exciting. Those games will be definitely very exciting. It really will tell us what team really should be the favorite in the AFC. And my opinion, I think they're going to split it, but it's going to be very interesting to see those games.
So now, let's just move on to the next division at hand in that AFC conference. And we're going to go over to the AFC North right now. A lot of mediocrity in this division. 3, 4, and 6 teams on the season. Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Baltimore are the defending Super Bowl champions. Yes, they're 4 and 6. Not a big surprise, though, especially with all the losses this offseason. The great players that they had in the past. Cincinnati is 7 and 4, but they have looked great at times, and then other times they've not looked so good. They kind of resemble Detroit kind of in the NFC for this. I kind of consider both these teams very similar in a way. They're both great one week, and then the other week they can have a very terrible game, but they're both playing in weaker divisions, so they have a good shot of winning it. But what do you think of Cincinnati and all these mediocre teams in the AFC North, Noah?
Well, the AFC North, Cincinnati I think is a good team. I think I don't know really actually. They play poorly against teams they should easily beat and play well against teams that they maybe shouldn't beat. I think they're a good team, but I'm going to have to see a little bit more before I determine really how good this team is and how far they can go in the playoffs.
And then what do you think of Pittsburgh? They were a team that a lot of people knew that they were out of it with their terrible start to the year. They fell. At one point in the season, they were at 0-4. Then they won 2 straight games, and they lost to Oakland and the Patriots. But they won 2 straight again. I really don't understand why this team is competing at full strength. I really thought once they fell to 0-4, they should have kind of gone for a tank and possibly gotten some great players in the draft. Considering this team is very mediocre, as I've said multiple times about all the teams in this division. But what do you think of Pittsburgh trying as hard as they can to compete and beating terrible teams and losing to good teams.
Well, that's Pittsburgh. They're not going to give up, ever. That's just not how they do it. They will play until the final game of the season. And really, I don't agree with it, but at the same time, I respect them for it. In the end, I do think it'll hurt them more than it'll help them. But they are a bad team, and there's no way around it. Hopefully they get a player in this draft, though, that can make an impact, because this team, it's getting older and really doesn't have the players really to make a run anymore.
Yeah, I just don't understand it. You have an older team. You get off to an 0-4 start, and I know Mike Tomlin's a great head coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they always want to win every game, but hurting their chances in the future, because they're going to get around a middle draft choice if they keep this up, maybe finish 8-8 or 7-9, somewhere around there, and they're going to hurt their chances in the future because they're not going to get any better next year. Maybe they'll just be even older and worse if they don't get a star player in the draft or a potential star player. So that's my opinion on Pittsburgh. But now we're going to move on to the next division over here. And that division will be the AFC South. Indy looks very good after their victory over Tennessee, kind of a bounce back from that weird performance we saw them play versus St. Louis. Just an upset by 30 points at home. That was just a weird game in my opinion, but I don't think it was a sign of anything to tell in the future for Indy, because they showed that they're a legit team with their victory on Thursday Night Football. They're 7-3, and they're way ahead of all the other teams in this division who have had terrible seasons, other than Tennessee, who's been kind of in the middle. But Noah, what do you think of Indy with their bounce-back performance this week on Thursday Night Football?
Well, they didn't really bounce back. They were struggling for much of the game. And this is a team that is the opposite of San Francisco. Against bad teams, they don't play well. And against good teams, they play great. And that's the great thing about them. Come playoff time, they will only be playing against great teams. So I think they have a very good shot of possibly making a deep playoff run. And we've already seen they can beat Denver. They probably could beat KC. So they do have a possibility of making a Super Bowl run. Hard? Unlikely? Yes, but they definitely could do it because they do play well against good teams.
Yeah, and if you look at their schedule right now, not a lot of good teams left on that slate. You have at Cincinnati, at Kansas City, but other than that, a lot of kind of either losing teams or kind of in the middle teams. You have Arizona next week in Arizona, but their schedule looks pretty easy from here on out, other than those 2 games on the road versus contenders. So I see this team finishing with 5 losses and a high playoff seed.
Yeah, I agree with you. And they are going to be a force in the playoffs. Nobody's really going to want to play them.
Yeah, and I just got to ask you here, Houston, with a loss today at home versus Oakland, they looked like they were competing. They looked like they were trying, but the bottom line is that this team is 2-8 on the season. You can make justifications for the Falcons being 2-8, but you have no justifications for why Houston is playing so terrible this season. Another team that was expected to be a dark horse Super Bowl contender, and with the loss, they have now lost 8 games in a row, just atrocious. Their coach needs to get fired. Their offensive coordinator needs to get fired. They need to clear the cabinet and get everyone out that is having a terrible year.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if you clear everybody out, but they have sometimes shown signs of okayness, but you're right, they do have to right the ship, and I don't really have much to say about them. They just, they really have to focus more on the future now and start thinking, which direction do we want to go from here on out?
And the scary thing is they've lost 4 consecutive games, all by really tight margins. Lost 17-16 to Kansas City. They lost by 3 at home versus Indy. They lost by 3 at Arizona. And then today they lost by 5. So it looks like they're competing, but they're just losing games playing out. So I don't think that is a very good sign for this team.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, it can't be a good sign. They have just played poorly. And hopefully, they can figure it out maybe later in the year. I really don't want them to win, though, because if they start winning, you lose a good draft spot. But it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. and what they decide to do with their players.
Yeah, and that is Houston for you guys. They're 2-8. Jacksonville's 1-9, and Tennessee's 4-6. So the Colts have a pretty easy division to deal with this season. But now we're going to move on to a very good division, and I'm talking about AFC West. I'm talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 9-0 on the season, and the Denver Broncos, who are 8-1, combined 17-1 mark on the season. And then you have the bottom dwellers, and that is Oakland and that is San Diego, both 4-6, but both kind of in the middle teams who can win some games versus competitors, but also lose some games versus teams they should not lose versus. But it's a very competitive division, no doubt about it. And just with that, Noah, can you update me on the score of the Kansas City-Denver game right now?
Well, the Kansas City-Denver game kicked off about 18 minutes ago, and probably the most hyped game of the year so far in Denver. And the Broncos are already up 3-0, but they almost had a scare. Trenton Holiday just muffed a kick on a return. Luckily, he recovered it. Broncos have the ball on their own 27. They are up 3-0. So far, Jamal Charles has rushed for 3 yards on 1 carry. Alex Smith is 1 for 5 with 16 yards. Peyton Manning 1 for 4 with 6 yards. Not much really going on when it comes to offensive skill. They have done absolutely nothing, actually, offensively. Matt Prater hit the 54-yarder, and that's basically all you can say that's good about this game so far. Not as exciting, but there will be more action to come. I guarantee it.
Yeah, good points there, and also a lot more football to be played for both these teams, even after this game. Yes, it's the marquee matchup of this NFL season so far, but they're going to be playing again in 2 weeks, and that game will be played in Kansas City. So Denver's got a really tough schedule to go along with, and I think this is very in favor of those Chiefs. They have to play the Chiefs tonight. Right now they're winning that game, but a lot more football to be said, like we said earlier. New England next week in New England, and then the week after that they play this Kansas City Chiefs team again, and then they go on to play at home in 2 straight games versus mediocre teams, and then they have 2 road games to end the year at Houston, at Oakland. So I really think Denver's schedule is not putting them in a great place to possibly win this division, especially since the Chiefs only have their schedule's a little easier than them. You can make the argument they have to play tonight at Denver. That could be their first loss of the year. No one would be surprised if that happened, but then they play at home versus San Diego, at home versus Denver, and then at Washington, at Oakland, and then at home versus Indy. So a very favorable schedule. So I think this could be the Chiefs' division to win right now. Noah, what do you think?
Yeah, and the truth is it all comes down to these 2 games. If the Broncos win this game, they'll be back in control of that division. And then it'll, of course, come down to the next time they play. So really, it comes down to this. I think Chiefs win this game, Chiefs win the division. Chiefs lose this game, it's still up for grabs. But this is a massive game for both teams. And if the Chiefs can win, they will probably be the new AFC favorites and possibly the Super Bowl favorite.
Oh, I think definite Super Bowl favorite. If you win at Denver, they're going to have a very favorable schedule, like I just said, because they're playing Denver in 2 weeks, and they're going to be the favorites in that game, and then they'll be the favorites in Week 16 versus Indy. They'll have a full-ride chance to get the home field advantage in the AFC if they win tonight. This would be a marquee statement victory for this team. If they were able to win versus Denver in Mile High, in the cold, that'd be a great victory for Andy Reid and his team and put them on top in the NFL.
Yeah, it would be gigantic, especially because he's a first-year coach, and it really just says, look, it doesn't matter if we have a new coach. It doesn't matter if we have a new quarterback. We will win. And really, I know that all the 49ers fans out there are killing themselves for letting go Alex Smith and having Colin Kaepernick as their quarterback. And I know that Alex Smith really wants to go out there and really prove that they made a mistake by letting him go. And he could maybe lead them to a Super Bowl in the first year. That would be a great success for Andy Reid. And I know Eagles fans even wouldn't probably be the happiest about that either, considering he might lead them to a Super Bowl.
Yeah. And with that, I think that is our NFL segment for this week on the Blake and Noah Show. Thank you guys for listening up. And now we're going to take our first commercial break, but stick with us here, everybody, and feel free to call in as well.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Your presentation of national sports is brought to you by Spreaker.com. Broadcast and listen to news, radio, and music with one low monthly rate. Your show will be right back after this word from your local stations.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Blake and Noah Show. I'm your host, Blake Devine, along with my co-host, Noah Taborda. And if you'd like to call into today's show, call into 773-988-9153. One more time, 773-988-9153. That is the number to call to talk on our show, and we'd love to hear your opinion. We've already had one caller, Gustavo Beo, a regular on our show, but I'd love to hear your voice and your opinion on our show today.
We love to hear your voice.
And with that, we're going to start with college basketball. I know this is Noah's, one of his favorite times of the year. College basketball is big in that boys' world. Noah, let's talk a little Michigan State, Kentucky, Duke, Kansas, and Ohio State, Marquette. All those marquee games. Big showdown last Tuesday, I believe, with all those games. Not with Ohio State and Marquette, but what did you take away from this week in college basketball?
Well, what I took away, let's talk about the first game. Michigan State is a title contender. Kentucky is still the best team in the country. And I'll explain this in a second. Jabari Parker is the best out of the three at this moment. And Kansas has possibly the most depth out of any team in college basketball. And, you know, I'll start out by explaining Michigan State. I think it's kind of self-explanatory. You beat a team like that, you are a really good team. And they did it with class, with quality. It was really hard for Kentucky to put much on the board in that first half. When it comes to Kentucky, they are the best team. They competed with a team that is already developed. And they've played, 3 games together now? They are going to be ridiculously good come the end of the season, led by the talented Julius Randle. Attack the hoop, he can rebound, he can do everything. The other players aren't yet at that level. And then Kansas, I mean, what can you say about them? You go down their team, and every player you put in is talented. It was a pretty crazy night where both of the teams ranked lower ended up winning.
Yeah, and just to make some points to you out there, for everybody, I'm just going to go away from this topic really quickly. Remember these teams come March Madness when you're picking your bracket and you see around a 14 or 15 or 13 seed. Belmont went into Chapel Hill tonight and defeated North Carolina 83-80. This was a North Carolina team that was ranked number 12 in the nation. They will not be ranked number 12 after this loss tonight, but this was an absolutely stunning game with a late three-pointer for the Belmont, I'm not sure what their name is, Belmont Bears, I want to say, but we don't know. But they were in the tournament last year, but remember, Belmont NCAA tournament this year, victory over North Carolina, very impressive. Also, another upset was Indiana State, shocking number 21 Notre Dame today. Indiana State, another very good team to remember come March Madness. And then the third upset of today was Iowa State taking out Michigan, who I really was high on early in the season. And still last week I was talking about them possibly winning the Big Ten with a lot of returning players from last year's Final Four run, but they lose to Iowa State. This was played at the Hawkeyes Hawkeyes. That's Iowa. What am I saying? They lost in Iowa today, 77-70. So 3 big upsets today for college basketball. Kind of remember these upsets, guys, because these are good teams.
Yeah, Blake, obviously you picked Michigan to win the Big Ten. What are your thoughts on that, especially now that Michigan State just handled Kentucky, and Michigan took a very tough loss against a unheralded Iowa State team?
Well, you got to remember, it's very, very early in the season, so I wouldn't put too much investment in it. Yes, Michigan should have won this game, but Iowa State is a very good team. You can make the case. They were in the tournament last year. They're consistently not a contender to win the Big 12, but they're always a very relevant team that's kind of in the picture for the tournament. They're 3-0 on the season, and so Iowa State could be a good team that could possibly be ranked in the top 25 after this victory over Michigan. But you cannot put too much into it for Michigan. And yes, they're kind of an experienced team. They should be winning these games, but it's a tough road game. They're going to get a few games to kind of bounce back. They'll play Long Beach State, who we all remember having a great team 2 years ago. They're from the Big West, where is kind of the area where I live in Santa Barbara. And then they'll play Coppin State. So they'll get 2 victories easy before they kind of bounce back and have a tough game at Duke. And that'll say a lot. If they get blown out at Duke, they should be worried. But if they compete and possibly played before conference play starts, so you really can't be talking Michigan State, and Ohio State all competing for that Big Ten championship yet, because we still have a lot of preseason games to go before conference play.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, I will look at the fact that Michigan, you do want to look at some of their games, though, at the beginning, even though it's not against the better teams. There's a lot of time to go. The teams that have done what they need to get done so far are Ohio State and Michigan State. Ohio State obviously getting the win over number 17, Marquette. I do think it's going to be tight either way in the end, but you want to be considered a good team. You don't lose, especially after losing Tim Hardaway Jr. and Trey Burke. It doesn't help your image, though I don't think it really has an effect later on in the year. But still, nonetheless, big upset there. Big upset Notre Dame. You also have Wisconsin taking on number 11 Florida and getting the win. So lots of upsets.
Yeah, and with that, Noah, do you want to go back to that conversation about Michigan State and Kentucky, or do you want to talk about Kansas Duke more?
I'll talk about Michigan State, Kentucky. And out of those 2 teams, there are 2 players that really stood out to me, and that's Julius Randle, of course, the talented freshman, just crazy good, and, of course, Gary Harris. And they're both so talented, and they could become possible competitors in the end for the Naismith Award, for the best player, for the John Wooden Award. It's going to be interesting. Those are both great players. Both are very refined in their skills, though one of them has had a lot more experience. I'm excited to see them develop as players as the year goes on.
Yeah, and now, Noah, I just got to ask you about Duke and Kansas. Obviously, we all know who won that game, and who was the really outstanding player. Got to go with Jabari Parker on this, but Kansas was able to pull out the victory. So what were your opinions on both teams, and what do you expect for them the rest of the season?
Well,
Noah?
The 2 teams, it's very close, but my expectations from them for the rest of the season, I expect them both to be really good, but one of them, in my opinion, isn't going to make the Final Four, because I do think Louisville will end up making it despite how much they struggle. I still think they have what it takes to make it there, but it's very tight between the 2. You saw the game came down to the very end. Both games came down to the very end. I expect this to be possibly the best year of college basketball ever. I think these teams are ridiculously good. I think these teams are ridiculously close in talent. So many talented young players. I do think Kansas will end up winning the Big 12. I think they really showed that in that game. And I also think that Duke also showed that they should be the favorites to win the ACC, though Syracuse and Oklahoma State both are very talented teams, and they really can't sleep on either of them.
Yeah, good points there. No, I have to ask you about Ohio State. A very good victory on the road versus Marquette, who's a consistently very good team under their coach, Buzz Williams. Last year they were in the Elite Eight, I believe. What did you take away from this victory for the Ohio State Buckeyes? Obviously, Aaron Craft, their leader, but great performances from some of their other players as well.
Yeah, and I think the player that I've looked at the most and said, wow, this guy is really stepping up, is Shannon Scott for us. He's done what we needed from our players, and we're getting contributions. We're playing well defensively, and we continue like this. You know, we have a shot of possibly giving Michigan State a run for their money for the title. We have a shot of possibly being Michigan as well. We're playing a type of basketball that isn't one player is going to do it all. We have multiple players that are really just going to have to work hard throughout the whole game, and so far we've done a good job of it.
Yeah, and Noah, anything else to talk about before I go over Joe Lunardi's recently released bracketology for this season?
No, I think we're ready for bracketology.
Yeah, so just breaking it down for you, Joe Lunardi makes these very accurate assessments of who should be all the seeds for that upcoming NCAA tournament in March. Yes, in March. Right now we're in November. It's a long way to go, yes, but...
Really quickly, we have a caller.
Oh, let's hear it.
We have a caller now, and what's your name? Nick. Okay, it is Nick. How you doing, Nick?
Pretty good.
What do you want to talk about?
The Minnesota Vikings.
What about the Minnesota Vikings?
Christian Ponder.
Christian
Ponder and how they should solve the problem with their draft pick, which will most likely be number 3 or number 4.
Okay, so the number 3 or number 4 pick. Well, I think that Teddy Bridgewater will still be the number 1 overall pick as long as Jacksonville goes there. I think that Jadeveon Clowney will go second in the draft to whatever team has the second pick. So really, once it gets to that, it's Taj Boyd and Marcus Mariota. I would think that they would end up going with Marcus Mariota because he is such a talent. Blake, what do you think?
Yeah, and just thank you, Nick, for calling on our show. Nick is a big Vikings fan for you guys all out there, having a very miserable season. I know it's tough, but maybe a sign of getting some great quarterback in the future. Yes, you have a lot of options to choose from. A very under-the-radar player, I think, that nobody is talking about that they could possibly snag in the second round is Aaron Murray and go after a very good defensive player since Jared Allen is going to be lost to free agency, I think. So possibly swooping Aaron Murray in the second round and getting a star defensive player, maybe not Jadeveon Clowney because they won't have the worst mark, but another great defensive player, like you said before, Notre Dame's defensive lineman Jason Nix, along with others. I don't know. That'd be my best advice for the Vikings because Marcus Mariota is not fit for an NFL system, in my opinion, yet.
Well, I can't say that you go after, Aaron Murray in the second round because I think the thing is Adrian Peterson has never had a good quarterback to play with him. And, hopefully, they will they'll be able to snag Bridgewater, which would be great for them. Maybe Jacksonville does go after Mariota, but they need their franchise quarterback. And I think they have to go after one of those top players, one of the Mariotas, one of the Manziels, Bridgewater or Boyd. I don't think they can really risk going that far down and end up drafting somebody who, once again, won't be good enough.
Yeah, and Nick, any more questions for you?
Any more questions?
No, thank you.
Thanks so much for being on the show, Nick. We are now at 2 callers. One more caller and we tie our record. And really quickly, one more comment on the Vikings. They have to do something, and they have to do something fast because they got into the playoffs, and now once again they seem to be without any hope at all.
Yeah, and I know it's painful to be a Vikings fan right now. I have a few of them in Santa Barbara and California. I know it's random, but there's a lot of Vikings followers out there. Who would have thunk? I don't know, but those Minneapolis people come to California and they root for their Vikings. But just you got to feel bad for the team. Adrian Peterson's such an outstanding talent, and it's kind of his prime of his NFL career. You could argue and say it's getting wasted playing for those Vikings right now. So I think it's kind of an unfortunate situation for the whole Vikings fan base.
Yeah, and they have a good fan base. Unfortunately, they just can't seem to get anything done. They can't seem to make any correct picks.
Yes, and now let's just go back to college basketball, bracketology, Joe Lenardi. We're going to start with the Midwest region in Indianapolis. The projected number 1 seed is still Kentucky. Projected number 2 seed is Oklahoma State. Number 3 is Michigan. They'll be dropping off maybe to a number 5 or even number 6 after the loss today. Number 4 is Marquette. They're going to fall off again because this was updated November 7th. So there's been some big games played since then. And then number 5 is Memphis. So those are your top 5 seeds for the Midwest region. Now we're going to move over to the East in New York. This is going to be very interesting. Played in Madison Square Garden, I believe. Michigan State projected to be number 1. No surprises there. Number 2, Florida. And then number 5, Oregon, the Ducks, who are having a good year so far with high expectations for them in the Pac-12. Now we're going to move over to the West in Anaheim region. Number 1 seed Louisville, number 2 seed Arizona, who would be back where they were last year in kind of the LA area for the tournament. Number 3, North Carolina, they'll be falling again because they lost today to Belmont. Number 4, Gonzaga, and then number 5, Wichita State, who is a very dangerous team again this year. So watch out for those Shockers. And they're aptly named the Shockers, as I said. South Memphis region, you have Duke, projected to be number 1 so far. They'll be flip-flopping with Kansas, who's projected to be the number 2 team. After the game, you're going to have to flip that around. Kansas will be number 1, and Duke will be number 2. And then Ohio State, your Buckeyes can move up to a number 2 seed. They're at number 3 right now. Virginia Commonwealth at number 4, and then New Mexico at number 5. So those are the top 5 seeds for each region. Noah, what was your initial take after looking at this so far?
I thought it was a good bracketology considering where it was at the point, not many of the upsets. And I agree with you on most of your flip-flops. I think in the end, Duke will retake that 1 spot over Kansas, but I do think that he did a very good job. And he always does a great job. Lenardi is always a great bracketologist, and once again, I'm impressed with his picks.
Yeah, I mean, I always use this guy to look at my the projected tournament because it'll kind of give me a sense of who I would pick and what matchup. Come bracket time, because I'm very competitive coming to picking my bracket. Even though it's November, I'm still analyzing the bracket so that come March I have a very good projection strategy to compete against my friends and family. But now moving down, Noah, who have been the best players so far in college basketball? Give me a 1 through 5 list starting at number 5.
Well, the players, the top 4 right now, let me just list off some of the players. I'm going to go Andrew Wiggins. I am going to say Julius Randle. I'm going to say Jabari Parker, of course. Gary Harris has to be on that list. And then the 5th player is a lot harder. And I'm going to go with somebody who's not even, just because I really think he's great, and he's not even in Division I. It's Grinnell's Jack Taylor of Division II. Okay.
Wow, Noah.
Yeah, I'll explain him. He's at number 5.
No Mitch McGarry.
Yeah,
that's a bold
here's
play.
why. He's not as good as any of these players. But I'm putting him in the top 5 because of what he does in Division II. Well, in case you don't know who this guy is, last year he put up 138 points in Division II. and he's back. He started his first game. He put up 71, and today he scored 109 points for Division 3. Grinnell College on Sunday, shooting 24 for 48 on three-pointers alone. He put in 53 during his first 9 minutes of the second half. So this guy is crazy. The 5'10" guard from Black River Falls. He's going crazy scoring. I don't care if he's in Division 2. He deserves to be, or Division 3. He deserves to be in the top 5. Not at the same level as a Mitch McGarry or any of them. Probably won't go any farther than college, but I'm still putting him in the top 5. When it comes to the other 4, Andrew Wiggins is 4th. Really, he's great, but I haven't seen dominance yet for him like I've seen from the other 3. Gary Harris is my number 3 player right now. You saw him in that game, just destructive, couldn't guard him. Second half, not as great, but he is really good. They did take a scare against Columbia, being down by 3 at half, Michigan State was. So that's why he's at 3. 2, Julius Randle, big guy, can't really stop the guy. He's at number 2 really because, he hasn't shown the refinement of number 1, Jabari Parker. Just phenomenal. Has everything in his game down. And at this point, he would be the number 1 pick in the draft for me.
Yeah, I gotta agree with a lot of your things. My only question with your number 5 ranked player coming from Division 3, my question is why isn't he playing in Division 1? If he's just destroying his competition, then obviously the competition is not good enough. Maybe he wasn't recruited out of high school, but I'm surprised that he didn't get any offers from teams after scoring around 130 points last year in a game and averaging just so many crazy amounts of points. Yes, he's 5'10", but why is he not playing for a Division 1 program? I have no idea.
Honestly, I think that he should get some offers, but he hasn't. It's been a little odd that he hasn't. But really, he isn't really that good compared to a lot of the other players. He isn't like a Mitch McGarry level, but he is good. I don't know. Maybe one day he will get an offer, but most likely his career is over after this.
Yeah, and I don't know. You could say if he played in Division 1, I swear to God, he might have not scored more than 1 point a game. But you have to see that one. And now, Noah, any more things to say about college basketball before we move on to the pros? Yes, I'm talking about NBA basketball. Noah, any more comments?
No, it's time for the NBA. We have covered college basketball to the max.
Okay, Noah, do you have any intro music before we get on to the NBA really quickly?
Intro music to the NBA. Now I'm going to have to, because I don't have intro music, now I'm going to do it. Talk about college basketball for a couple more seconds, Blake.
Yes. So college basketball, just my initial reactions, great season so far. But I don't know, basketball music, Noah, you got to go with something like, you got to give me a little maybe Jay-Z, Kanye West, Kendrick Lamar. There's so many options to choose from. Far East Movement. Yes, I'm talking about songs right here. I'm not talking about sports, but there's so many good basketball songs to choose from. But a very good one is Remember the Name by
I was just about to say that. It's between that or the NBA on TNT theme song. Which one am I going with?
You got to go with Remember the Name, the old TNT theme song.
Remember the name? Okay. Let's get it right here. Playing it just whenever it plays. Are there going to be commercials? No. There. Let's go. Just going to play this for a little bit.
Let's go. Yeah. For those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, y'all. This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50%...
Lowering the volume now. It's a great basketball song.
Yeah, so with that is great intro music. It just gets the hairs on my neck going up, and it gets me excited about basketball. But the biggest news I think we have to talk about is Kobe Bryant was reported to be practicing with the Lakers as recent of this Saturday. So Kobe could be back in action very soon for my Los Angeles Lakers. This is huge news for a team that is struggling right now, to say the least, with a 4-7 mark on the season. But now we're going to get on to some big stories as well. We're going to start with Matt Barnes and his tweeting madness after his brawl with Serge Ibaka of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Noah, I want to hear your opinion on this whole issue.
Well, I look at this, and why is it that the NBA seems to have always somebody doing something wrong? The NFL, it has people doing something wrong, but it just happens over and over again in the NBA. There's no stopping it. Matt Barnes, Lamar Odom, all of this happening. It's every sport, really. I don't understand why sports does this, why athletes do this to themselves. Do they not understand they're under such a fine microscope? And I understand, that he says, I was using it in a different context than derogatory way, but it's still unacceptable. And I think Matt Barnes, he should apologize. I don't care whether or not he used it in a derogatory thing to say, you guys got to get used to it. That's not how you handle it. That's not how you get people back on your side. You have to apologize, and I hope he does soon.
Yeah, just this use of the N-word in sports, it's just a very unique issue because you have these African-American players and you have these white Caucasian players, and they're both competing, and there just seems to be, yes, you want to treat everybody equally. Yes, your teammates, you want to be all the same, equal in a way, but there are boundaries to be crossed. Yes, Matt Barnes is African-American descent, but his use of the N-word just publicly on Twitter, there seems to be a need for some rules to be enforced, which is kind of a touchy issue, considering the commissioner of the NBA is white. He's David Stern, but there needs to be a meeting on this, and it could be the players' union, it could be the commissioner making a decision, but something needs to be done with this in the NBA and in sports in general, in professional sports.
Yeah, and I don't know if it'll ever go away, because there's always some player that just doesn't want to listen and, take care of his business, not publicly. If you have a problem with a player, talk to him personally. Don't say it in front of everybody. Don't do that. It's just stupid. Matt Barnes has lost a lot of respect from me. And a lot of these players have. Lamar Odom had such a great career, and now, I think of him as the guy who's like a druggie and can't stay in rehab. You gotta handle your life correctly, especially when you're under such a fine microscope. These players aren't, and for that, they don't deserve our forgiveness.
Yes, good point there. And I think we're done talking about this issue. We're going to move on to a team that's struggling so far, and we're talking about the Nets here, a team that is at the highest payroll in the NBA for this season. Last night they were beaten by the Clippers, and this was a game in which they did not have Paul Pierce, they did not have Darren Williams, Kevin Garnett. The only regular starter for this team, the only regular starter was, sorry about this, I'm messing up already. Who was playing in the lineup last night? Was it Paul Pierce was the only regular starter? Am I correct on that one?
Yes.
Yes, so Paul Pierce was the only regular starter. They played pretty hard, but they ended up losing to the Clippers. No surprise there, being so depleted and playing in LA. But this team has looked atrocious to start the season, to say the least. You could make the argument that this has been one of the most disappointing teams so far. They're 3-6, but they've lost to some very mediocre, to say the least, teams. Starting with their loss versus the Charlotte Bobcats at home. Their loss at Charlotte. Oh, no, they defeated Charlotte. Sorry about that. And, whoa, I'm looking at the Knicks right now, people. I'm sorry, I just pulled that up randomly. Knicks are another terrible team, but we'll get on to that quickly. But we're going to talk about New Jersey and Brooklyn. Sorry about that. Pulling it up very quickly here, their schedule. Having some technical errors, but we'll start up really quickly. Okay, their loss at Orlando. Orlando is an improved team, but not a legit team. Their loss at Washington. Washington is dreadful, everybody. And then they've lost at Sacramento, at the Clippers, and at Cleveland, and then also at home versus Indiana. So they're just losing games, which they should be winning, in my opinion. They're 3-6. How high is the panic meter, in your opinion, in Brooklyn right now, Noah?
Well, I don't think it's really that high of a panic level. yet because it is so early on in the season, but I do think that they really do have to get themselves back on the right track. They are a good team when they are healthy, but they aren't healthy. And at this point, I really don't take them as a threat. And you're right, they have lost against bad teams, though I do think Washington is much improved.
But they're not a playoff team, is what I'm trying to say.
They are. Just not.
Oh, wow, that's bold. That's a bold statement. Washington right now is 2-7, Noah, just to make you clear on that one.
Oh, I know, but I still think that they aren't a terrible team. Look at the teams they played. They do play well against good teams. Brooklyn, though, remember, they are a team with a new coach, with a bunch of new players, and it doesn't happen immediately. They competed with the Clippers. They beat the Heat. They are a playoff team, but if they can't right the ship, then if they can't right it quickly, then things could be going from bad to worse.
And then also another team across the street. I'm talking about the New York Knicks. They're 3-6 as well on the season. What do you think about New York? Is it time to panic for them?
Yeah, them. It's time to panic for, or not panic, but start to get worried about, because you look at the team. They have had time to play together. Mike Woodson is on the hot seat. Carmelo Anthony is just playing like regular old Carmelo Anthony, not doing much. He's scoring a ton, but shooting too much. They have injuries. Andrea Bargnani paid way too much. Amon Shumpert not playing at the level he should. This Knicks team looks bad. And unlike the Nets, they don't have much to look forward to.
Yeah, and then it's recently been reported that the Knicks are trying to pursue Kevin Love to join the Knicks to kind of get Carmelo happy and satisfied, because we all know Carmelo Anthony is just so known infamously for his drama when he's unhappy with his team. We saw it went down in Denver a few years ago and how that's worked out for that team. But what do you think of this recent news being reported and swirling around the NBA?
Well, I'm not really sure what to think about all of this. I don't think the Knicks will get him. Personally, I don't think that they have a good enough team. But if they could get him, it would be a massive win for them. But it will be tough to be able to woo him, and that's why they're trying to pursue Kenneth Faried as well, because they want to give him a reason to come to New York. At this moment, there is no reason, but they do have the tools possibly to make some trades and get some players. We'll see how that turns out. There's still another 2 years before Kevin Love is a free agent anyways.
Yeah, and just another thing to talk about the Knicks. J.R. Smith was reported on being fined $25,000 by the NBA. What do you think of J.R. Smith's behavior and how it symbolizes the Knicks season so far?
Well, J.R. Smith this is just a terrible personality, and I think that they are a good team when they start to talk to each other, but when you have a guy like J.R. Smith, it doesn't make it easy. You have to be a team that stays out of the spotlight. When you're in the spotlight, it's very difficult, and J.R. Smith is always in the spotlight.
Yes. And with that, Noah, do you want to talk standings, or are we running low on time, so we just got to talk about pretenders and contenders?
Well, let's go to pretenders and contenders.
Okay, so I just got to start off right now. The Miami Heat, Noah. We talked about them last week, yes. But I don't know what to think about this team so far. They've been a team that really looks like they do not care about the regular season at all so far this season. Yes, they are currently sitting at, I'm looking at a weird standing right now. 7-3. They've won 4 consecutive games after losing really badly. But what do you think of this Miami Heat team?
Oh, I still think they are obviously a contender. I think they are the best team in the NBA. Sure, they started out struggling, but they're now 7-3. They have turned it around since then. I think you look early on, I don't think they were really in the groove of things yet. They lost, of course, to the Nets, which was a tough loss to say the least. But since then, they've started to win games. They obviously defeated the Bobcats easily, though. That's not really a confidence booster. It's just the Bobcats aren't really that great of a team. But you look at the other games. They beat Dallas. They beat Milwaukee. They beat the Clippers. Still a contender. Still the best team in the NBA, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then quickly, let's talk about Indiana here. Got off to one of the best starts ever to the NBA season. They were 9-0, but they were defeated last night handily by your Bulls, 110-94. Noah, I know you were watching the game last night. What did you think of this game for both teams, but especially for the Pacers suffering their first loss?
Well, thank God we finally got the win over the Pacers, and thank God they lost. Let's go. Derrick Rose finally got over the 20-point mark. Maybe he's finally coming out and starting to play really, really well again. But Indiana is, in my opinion, played the best so far. I don't think they are the best, but they have played the best. But the Bulls made a statement win. They are a contender still. Pacers are a contender, though the Bulls still, I think, have a little more to work out than the Pacers do.
Yeah, and then for all the heat that Chicago was taking for kind of a slow start, they're 5-3. They're doing fine. They get to play Charlotte on Monday. I think they should win that game. And then on Thursday on TNT in the late game, they'll be playing the Nuggets. So they could win those next two games and be sitting pretty at 7-3. But we'll have to see how it plays out for your Bulls, Noah. Another team I got to talk about, San Antonio, just totally under the radar this offseason. Under the radar for this season so far. Nobody's talking about the Spurs, but there they are once again, 9-1 on the season, tied for the best mark in the NBA.
Yeah, I look at the Spurs, and people don't talk about them because they're not an exciting team. You don't look at them and say, wow, it's the Spurs playing. Let's go watch. Nah, they're just one of those normal teams that's just going to win the game and move on. Their players are so unexciting. Tim Duncan after the game, great game, we won. Tony Parker, great game, we won. Greg Popovich, yay, we won. And then, or you can watch some team like Miami where after the game's win, he's going to be like, yeah, we got the win. And he'll be all hyped and everything. I think you're going to take the one where it's a little more exciting. So that's why they have flown under the radar. And once again, they're proving age doesn't matter.
Yes, but also you gotta give it up to them for just a 9-1 start. Nobody's talking about this team yet. They're tied for the best mark in the on the year. But another team, pretender or contender, you gotta ask. Portland, 8-2 on the season. Nobody was talking about this team, even for making the playoffs in the West this year. Yet they're 8-2, and they're playing Toronto currently right now. Oh no, they defeated the Toronto Raptors in overtime today, 118-110, and improved to 8-2 on the season. And they'll play the struggling Brooklyn Nets in Brooklyn on Monday. So what do you think of this team?
Well, right now they are a playoff contender. You look at this team, and they are clicking on all cylinders. LaMarcus Aldridge having a career year, averaging 22 points, 9 rebounds, getting some steals, getting some blocks. Damian Lillard playing well again. Wesley Matthews, 15 points, coming off the bench. Or not coming off the bench, but not being like the primary role. But Nicholas Batum doing a little bit of everything. You know, he's got 5 assists, 6 rebounds, 13 points. Mo Williams coming off the bench for Lillard, playing well. Robin Lopez getting the boards. Thomas Robinson definitely developing as well. They look really good. And if they continue to click on all cylinders like they are right now, they could possibly get past that first round and maybe even make a run and try and get into the conference finals, though I do think that may be a little bit of a reach.
Yeah, and then quickly, just for time constraints, we can't really talk about Oklahoma and Golden State, both at 7-3 and 6-3 respectively, but I just want to hear what are your thoughts on the Houston Rockets so far? They're 7-4 on the season. They've shown signs of greatness, and they've also shown some signs of being a young team that's still trying to click on all cylinders. They're 7-4 right now.
Well, I think Houston is a good team, and like you said, they aren't really they're not going straight ahead yet. They're kind of on like a little curvy path. They're not sure how they're going to play together yet. And, you know, 2 of those losses, though, have come against Clippers and the Clippers. So they're losing to the Clippers, and those are very good teams. I do think Houston is really good. I think they're a contender still, but it will take time for them to click, just like the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, just correcting you on a mistake there. I believe you said the Clippers and the Clippers. Did you mean twice to the Clippers?
No, I meant to the Clippers and to the Clippers.
Oh, but they also lost to
Yeah,
the Lakers.
I know.
LA team.
But, I mean, the Clippers are, like, the team that really, like, they're, no offense to your Lakers. I know you're a Lakers fan. And even though they haven't been terrible this year, like most people expected, as they're really right now, they're 4-7, so not terrible. Bad, but not terrible. But I meant the Clippers, meaning, they've lost twice to a team that some would consider the best team in the West, despite not having the best record.
Yeah, I mean, good. Yeah, that's a good point there. Okay, so that wraps up our NBA section. I think we're going to take a quick commercial break here and come back and talk about some college football. Great weekend. And we've already talked a little bit with some phone calls from Gustavo, but lots to talk about here. Jameis Winston, a recent scandal. It seems like it always happens in college football. A person competing for the Heisman is somewhat involved in a scandal, but lots more to come here from the Blake and Noah show. Stay tuned, everybody.
We'll be right back.
You can contact National Sports in a number of ways through Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter with the label National Sports. We love to have you guys a part of our show and can easily join us also through text or call. You're listening to the National Sports radio station on Spreaker.com.
I'm living in that 21st century, doing something mean to it, do it better than anybody you ever seen.
What's up? We're back, Blake and Noah, LA Chicago, episode 14, with our final segment of the day, and that will be college football. So, Blake, you were talking about Jameis Winston right before we got in. You are a Florida State fan, so how about you tell us what's going on with him?
Yeah, so recently reported, and this was coming down in the middle of the week this week before they played Syracuse, absolutely destroyed the Cuse, 59-3. Another outstanding performance for Jameis Winston here. But a recent report was that Jameis Winston was possibly linked to a sexual abuse case from a girl, and this was reported last December, but they never got around to the case. But the possible suspect, This possible suspect of the case was somewhere around 5'7" to 5'11". That was the criminal report for that issue. But Jameis Winston is 6'4", everybody, so that doesn't seem to add up, if you know what I mean. But it's reported that it will be released if he is going to be a part of this trial or issue in court in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And if this were to happen, if he would be linked to the case due to Florida State's activities and their rules around the athletic department and their football team, if he were linked to the case or had to go to court, he would be dismissed from the football team for the rest of the year. And this would be just a complete bullet in the heart of the Noles' chances of winning the championship and for Jameis Winston's Heisman hopes. So that is that. This is a huge news for Florida State. And Noah, I want to hear about you and your opinions for this issue for Winston.
Well, this could be big, especially because you still have a lot of undefeated teams. Could lead to Ohio State passing them, could lead to Baylor passing them. It'll be very interesting in the end. I really hope that he is fine, though, because I want to see the best teams play. I don't want to see a team without their best player. I don't want to see the worst teams playing. I don't want to see another Notre Dame in there. I want to see the best teams play, and I think Florida State is one of the top 2 teams in the country.
Yeah, 2 straight 59-3 victories for them. Very notable. Okay, well now we're going to go on to another big game that was played, and yes, I'm talking about USC Stanford. We already covered this, but 20-17 victory for USC. Just a complete shock for the Stanford team, considering they were just playing great versus Oregon last Thursday. But Stanford is just going to fall out of the picture. I believe they'll fall out of the top 10 in the BCS standings. And then also, the BCS standings were recently released. Noah, can you tell me about the top 10 in the BCS standings now, recently for week 13?
Well, thank God Ohio State is third, first of all, before I say anything. Baylor recently jumped Ohio State in the AP poll, which I think is ridiculous. I hate how when you don't lose a game, you somehow still get jumped. But Alabama in first, Florida State in second, Ohio State in third, Baylor in fourth. The undefeated teams, top four, makes sense, in my opinion. Then you go to Oregon, who have now jumped back into the top five, and a team that could threaten Alabama's title hopes. That would be Auburn. They play them in 2 weeks. We could see Florida State, Ohio State in the championship game, depending on how that game turns out. Clemson at 7th, Missouri in 8th, Stanford 9th, Oklahoma State 10th, and in order from here, South Carolina, Texas A&M, Michigan State, UCLA. Got to mention Fresno State, in more detailed. They are a team that not many people expected to be here, and they're followed by another team like that, Northern Illinois, and once again another team, Arizona State, and then University of Central Florida. So right there, 4 in a row that not many people expected to be in the top 25, but are. And then Wisconsin, Oklahoma, Louisville, LSU, USC back in there, and Ole Miss all expected, and then Minnesota, surprisingly in there now, as they have gone undefeated in the Big Ten. So that really helps Ohio State when another Big Ten pops up, when another Big Ten team pops up in there, which means now there are not two, not three. There are, 3 teams besides Ohio State now from the Big Ten. And from the ACC, I only see Clemson. So I don't think the argument of the Big Ten isn't that good is applicable if there are more teams in that conference. Just putting that out there, though I do think Florida State deserves their spot. I'm sick of people saying Big Ten is bad when they have more than a team than a conference that nobody even says is bad anyways.
Yeah, you got to be a little concerned being an Ohio State fan versus a possible showdown versus Michigan State. Michigan State's been rolling of late. They are on a 6-game winning streak after losing to Notre Dame on September 21st. And then they have a very favorable schedule at Northwestern, and then at home versus Minnesota. They could be 11-1 by the time they play those Buckeyes, who will probably be undefeated, and that would be quite the marquee matchup for the Big Ten title.
Well, it won't be easy, though. Obviously, they are now in the top 25. But sure, I'll give it to Michigan State. They are on a good winning streak this year. 6 games is a solid number, but Ohio State's winning streak, that is hard to count. You have to go back to 2011 to find their loss, and that was to Florida in the TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl. TaxSlayer.com. That's a terrible bowl name. TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl. Oh, but they are on a 22-game winning streak. So I'll give my edge to the 22-game winning streak team. I'm looking at the 2011 season. They really blew it. They lost 3 games in a row to Purdue, Penn State, and Michigan. But back to the point, 22 games in a row is pretty substantial, and I hate how Baylor can pass them. Teams are overlooking them. I am sick of that, but it's going to be a great end of the season. It's going to come down to the wire. All of the teams, it's going to be close.
Yeah, a really notable game is the marquee matchup next Saturday night, and that will be at Boone-Pickens Stadium, Oklahoma State, number 10, versus Baylor, number 4, and this could be a very big upset in the making if Oklahoma State was able to surpass Baylor in this game, and then also they would surpass them in the Big 12 standings as well, with only 1 loss so far. And you saw how Oklahoma State just destroyed Texas, who was looking pretty good and improved. They have 3 losses on the year, but Oklahoma State just destroyed Texas in Austin. What do you think of this game that's going to be going down, the marquee Saturday game of the week?
Well, you look at that, it's going to be a great game, but Texas coming off the loss, I can't see them as the favorites, but you never know. I hope Texas wins. Really, I do hope they can get the win, but I don't know if they can.
No, just to clarify, they're playing at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is the number 10 ranked team. It'll be Baylor at Oklahoma State. Sorry
that's
about
at
that.
Texas. I was like, okay.
They're playing Texas in their last game at home, which I
Okay, yeah, because I was gonna say because Texas they do play them, so that was sorry about the confusion there, but against Oklahoma State it's gonna be tough, of course. But I do think that Baylor have the upper hand. But I really, honestly, I hope they lose because I want Ohio State to have breathing room because they never seem to have it. But I do think Baylor is the favorite going in. Just too much talent from Bryce Petty and Lace Strunk.
Wow. Okay. I expect an upset. I for sure am expecting Oklahoma to just shock the world here and beat Baylor. Baylor showed that they are not unstoppable this week versus Texas A&M. They're struggling. They were down 28-7 at one point versus Texas Tech at the Cowboys Stadium. They ended up winning 63-34 handily, but 34 points is a lot of points, and Oklahoma can sure put those up in a hurry. This could be a game in which both these teams get to the 40s point mark. So if you want to see a shootout, guys, check out Oklahoma State Baylor. Sure to be a great game for this college football season as it rears toward its end. Noah, that is going to be our segment this week. Any more last words to say on college football?
No, I'm just excited to see how the rest of the year plays out.
Yep, and with that, are we going to do our closing shout-outs and say-whats, or are we just...
No say-whats today, unfortunately. Once again, this has been a pretty bad week. I'll look one more time just for everybody out there. It's just been a pretty bad week when it comes... or pretty bad weeks when it comes to funny sports news. From Sports Pickle, really disappointing. Let's see here. No, nothing. Oh, actually, yes. The 10 most embarrassing NFL individual records. So, we're going to start with the most fumbles career, which is Brett Favre. He has 166 career fumbles. So, that's a lot. And then for most fumbles in a season, Kerry Collins and Dante Culpepper both with 23 fumbles. Fumbles in a game? Okay, no, that's just ridiculous. Len Dawson of the Chiefs, 7 fumbles in a game. So, that's not a good... If you had him on your fantasy team, even though 1964 there was no fantasy teams, I don't think he... Oh, he also threw 2 interceptions. And he's in the Hall of Fame. Len Dawson. Imagine if he was on your fantasy team. So, he could have thrown 500 yards, and he still would have ended up with... 4 points.
Wow.
He's just bad. And then most interceptions career, obviously, Brett Favre. 8 interceptions in a game for the Chicago Cardinals quarterback, Jim Hardy. Most times sacked in a game, 12 by Donovan McNabb in 2007 is what I never knew that. I don't remember that game, but that's pretty crazy. And most punts blocked in a season. Harry Newsom of the Steelers was blocked 6 times in a season. So that's not obviously good. So those are some of the embarrassing records. And now we are on to birthdays. See, there's not much going on, unfortunately. Oh, that's a new one.
Unfortunately. Wow, you made up a new word there, Noah.
Yeah, completely unintentionally, but unfortunately. Okay, now to basketball. Elvin Hayes, it's his birthday today. We also have Jack Foley's birthday and Jim Boeheim, the coach of Syracuse. In baseball, Nick Markakis, it's his birthday today. Tom Seaver, Gary Bell, Bob Mathias, lots of great players. Football, Nathan Vasher, Reggie Wayne's birthday today, Urban Odson, Butch Davis, and that's it. That's basically it for birthdays. So Blake, how about we start with you with shout-outs?
Yeah, I'm just going to shout out to everyone out there listening to our show. Thank you so much for all you guys out there. Be sure to like our page on Facebook, trying to get to 100 likes. But along for sports, got to give a shout out to my boy Jameis Winston at Florida State. Hoping for the best for you in the upcoming decision on I don't know, I just hope that he is not involved in this case. Everything we're hearing about is just totally overhyped Heisman talk. But I just hope them and the rest of the Noles the best, and I hope that they can finish the year undefeated and hopefully play in the BCS national title game, along with him being invited to New York. So that's from Jameis Winston, along with my other team, USC, in college football. I got to give a shout-out to them. They swarmed the field at the Coliseum. Haven't seen that happen for so many years. And they have a chance, if they win out, to possibly be in the hunt for a Pac-12 South championship and maybe make a three-way tie with Arizona State and UCLA playing next week. So shout-out to my Trojans. Shout-out to the Boston Red Sox. Hopefully they can re-sign some of their key players from last year, including Mike Napoli, Stephen Drew, and then also Jacoby Ellsbury, who's going to be very expensive to re-sign. And then a shout-out to my family. Thank you all for supporting me. Love you guys all. And that is all for my shout-outs for this week. Noah?
Well, my shout-outs, I'm going to start with a shout-out to Torrey Smith for giving me his glove at the Bears game, and a shout-out to Jacoby Jones for giving me a high five. But also, shout-out to the Ohio State Buckeyes. We better at least make it to the Rose Bowl. I'll be really upset if we don't. We definitely deserve it. Remember, we are on a 22-game winning streak, and I think that deserves a BCS Bowl and a high one. Not like I don't want the Sugar Bowl. Like, even though the Sugar Bowl is big, I don't want the Orange Bowl. I want either the Rose Bowl or the National Championship. I will not settle for anything less. I will go on strike if we don't. But besides that, shout out to the Bulls and D Rose finally getting to the 20-point line. Shout out to my family, my dad, mom, my brother, everybody, and that is about it. We are at the 100 mark, so that seems like a good place to end it. Thanks, everybody, for listening to the show. Like our Facebook page. Like us on Twitter. Like us everywhere. Go to our website. See you guys next week.
Thank you all. Have a great night, everybody.